Welcome back, everyone, to Tyranny. We just got into Vendrian's Well. We are trapped in the valley, and we have an edict of Kairos's to proclaim. But first we need to go and see the archons of the armies that are working here. So we'll go to the disfavored camp. This fort was constructed shortly after routing rebels along the valley's western edge. The Archon, Graven Ash, directs all disfavored efforts from this location. Yeah, the loading times are incredible. Since I put this on an SSD, it's crazy how much of a difference that makes. So let's see what's going on here. Some stuff. Verse says, "Slow down a moment. I know we're both eager to watch the Archons bicker over tactics like a pair of magpies, but I need to ask you something first." What's that? "The voices of Nerat told me that you've come as a mediator. Considering the source, well, I can't help but feel I'm only hearing half the story. So let's have it out. What's so special about you?" So I'm going to tell her straight up, I'm here to deliver an edict from Kairos. She says, "That makes a crazy kind of sense. Considering how long the siege has taxed the armies, I can understand why Kairos would send you with an edict to speed things along. Have you read it? Do you know what it says?" "The Archons must claim Ascension Hall, which is the traditional home throne of the ruler here in Vendrian's Well. We must claim Ascension Hall by Kairos' Day of Swords, which is the 26th of the month, or all will perish." Verse says, "One more thing for the Archons to fight over. Well, thanks for cluing me in. If Kairos sends any lightning our way, just tell me when to duck." He said, "Why so suspicious? Why so suspicious?" She says, "It's just a feeling I got. When the Archons are together, the air gets taut as a bowstring. I can't help but think that no amount of compromise will get them seeing eye to eye. So why invite a mediator from Tunan's court? It doesn't add up. Why do you think the Archons are at odds?" "I've been with the Scarlet Chorus since the early days of the conquest, so I can say it's been building over a few years now. There's an energy between those two, like a pair of storms moving to collide. I've heard tell that Graven Ash and the voices of Nerat shared some bad blood in the Northern Empire, but I don't know any of the particulars. By my authority, the Archons will fall in line." Verse says, "That sounds like exactly the attitude to set this campaign in the right direction. I don't envy you the task of getting them to cooperate, which sounds about as easy as teaching a tornado to heal. At least you sound like you know what you're doing." I'll ask her what else the voices of Nerat has told her. She says, "Only that I could find you in Edgering ruins. Truthfully, I could have picked you out of a crowd. You're the only one of us who hasn't spent the last few months bathing in the stink of the Matani River." She laughs, but there's a forced nature to it. "I really ought to be meeting the Archons." So I gained a bunch of loyalty with Verse there, which is cool. She says, "The war tent is just past the center of camp." She nods towards the northeast. "One last thing, be careful around these disfavored types. They take their work seriously, and most have suffered too many blows to the head." So I'm going to see what's going on with this cart here. The Crescent Runner says, "Hail, Fatebinder." The disfavored scout nods at your approach. "Camp's on up ahead. Don't mind us, just clearing out the rabble." Sterling Hagnon says, "I still don't understand what I've done to offend. I respect that these are now disfavored lands, and I'm happy to give the Legion a proper toll, but she's going on about trading rights. What nonsense is that? I am not allowed to trade one thing for another? It's not like I'm selling weapons to angry peasants or anything of the sort." I'll say, "The Overlord regulates all trade. If you lack the proper permits, your goods are forfeit." He says, "A trading permit? Well, how was I mean, to whom would I speak for such a thing?" Crescent Runner says, not us and not our problem. Maybe march your butt to the bastard city and plead your case before Tunon, but we'll lighten your burden and relieve you of your wares first. That should make the long trek a little more bearable. And I will say, anything to be argued before Tunon may be argued before me. Crescent Runner says, what's there to discuss? We should kill this mongrel and... The warrior pauses, placing her hand in front of her mouth. If the Fatebinder wishes to weigh in on the matter, courtesy demands we listen. The soldier clears her throat, looking at you expectantly. This is a disfavored matter, but I know the agents of the court do so love to throw their judgments around. Sterling says, well, you could rob me now and have my supplies today. The merchant grabs a flask from his cart, or you can leave me alive and have fermented honey all year long. I even know a few family recipes for painkillers and healing drafts. Certainly any army will need those. He uncorks a small ceramic vial, and the aroma of cloves and lanolin assaults your nose. So, because my lore is high enough, I can say, what a coincidence. Your family recipe for wound paste smells just like the Scarlet Fury's own concoction. Where'd you steal this? He says, I don't... The merchant tenses up, his face flushing red. I don't know what you're getting at. And think my athletics is enough that I can pick him up by the collar and say, how stupid do you think I am? He says, slow down, I'll tell you everything, just don't hurt me. I found most everything out in the forests of the valley. I'd keep my head low when I heard sounds of combat, then I'd take a look and grab whatever wasn't claimed by the first victors. Crescent Runner says, so then you stole from the disfavored dead? How else did you get your hands on that iron? The scout points to the merchant's cart. You would come here and sell us our own armaments? Sterling says, if anything has an owner, I will return it, but this iron would have turned to rust if left in the mud of the battlefield. The disfavored are few in number, is that not right? You need a man like me to gather up supplies that would otherwise go to waste. Let's see. I will tell him to leave this cart as a gift for Graven Ash, then leave and never come back. Crescent Runner says, thank you, Fatebinder. I know others of your ilk would gleefully meddle in our affairs at every opportunity. The soldier turns her attention to the merchant. I hereby reclaim these trappings of the Overlord for use by the disfavored. If you want to live, take 2 steps to your left and don't move a muscle. The peddler shakes his head with a scowl and steps aside as directed. Spitting toward his own cart, Hagnon mutters a half-garbled curse before placing his hands up in submission. And then we're gonna... oh, we can't. Okay, so let's go into the camp. Who do we have here? Step closer and present yourself. The gate guard holds up a warning hand. Go no farther. You approach disfavored ground. State your business. I will glare silently. The soldier wordlessly meets your gaze, eyes unblinking beneath the skull visor of his helmet. I'll keep glaring. He says, oh right, you're the Fatebinder we're supposed to be expecting. Glad the court cares enough to send its jester. The guard whistles to signal your arrival and waves you through with a sigh. I didn't impress anybody with my glaring, apparently. Let's take a look-see around before we, I like that we can just take things off these stands. That's not stealing for some reason.
It's all in the reflexes.
Alright, so we got another magical accent. Increases the strength of a spell. So let's see if we can't beef that up, yeah. So we have a greater kind of effect. I think it's not too terribly much. Yeah, it's a half of a vitality and might point. But, why not? So let's do the same with these. I cannot do it with this one because that would put it over my limit, but I can power up my charged fist as well. So there is a Scarlet Chorus emissary here, named Bitterquip. Glory to the voices of Nerat. Projecting his salutation for all to hear, the grinning blood chanter raps his staff against the ground as you approach. Fatebinder dandy jars, I presume. His smile quickly retreats, giving way to a sour scowl. I am Bitterquip. I am here as the emissary of the Scarlet Chorus. Bitterquip looks at you impatiently. What's it like working with a disfavored? He scoffs, looking away from you for a moment before sniffing and returning his attention to you. Reporting to the Iron Hag is an insult. She fought one duel for her title? One? Her leadership must be continuously proven, earned, and defended. Weakness should bleed to the bottom of the army, not rise to the top. My assignment here is also an insult, but one I will bear for the good of the chorus. Bitterquip sniffs the air, smiling with one side of his mouth. If only to see with my own eyes the failure of the disfavored, that will be a fine day. What can you tell me about the Scarlet Chorus? The chorus is the future of the tiers. I feel only derision and pity for those who fear our inevitable ascension. Bitterquip looks at you with a raised eyebrow. What in particular would you like to know? Tell me about the voices of Nerat. Bitterquip says, he is supreme commander and public servant, he who sets us free but directs all. Bitterquip smiles as he talks, his face turning flush. The voices of Nerat is the epitome of what each of us can be, a magician without equal, and the leader of uncountable numbers. The voices in the chorus are one, conquering, expanding, growing, changing, always stronger. Bitterquip pounds his staff on the ground. Glory to the voices. How did you come to join the Scarlet Chorus? Bitterquip says, the doctrine of strength speaks to me, and I answered its call, as did some of my arcane peers. I took to the chorus almost instantly. Unlike most, I cried not for the life of comfort lost to me. My magic invokes fear and terror, and I easily established my dominance over a pack in my early days in the chorus. If you're so curious about it all, Bitterquip smiles, lifting an eyebrow, perhaps you should visit our camp and see for yourself. What's your role in the chorus? I'm a blood chanter. My magic can turn the will of a man and the tide of a battle. I have held command for 3 years now, though being forced to keep an eye on the disfavored is not the reward I had envisioned for my service thus far. Sounds as if you really like the voices of Nerat. Bitterquip blinks several times and scowls, saying nothing. That's all for now. He nods as we depart. Alright, well, let's go see those Archons.
Curious.
That's 4 reports of avalanches in the mountains now. The Tiersmen can barely count past 9. They have neither the capacity nor the cause to close off the mountain passes. Either way, that leaves the 2nd and 4th cohort trapped outside the valley.
Let's see, so that was Graven Ash. The Archon of War pounds his staff on the ground to punctuate his words. A large and imposing man to begin with, his profile is made larger still by his hulking suit of armor that hums with mystic energy.
Or it's the work of your perfidious Earthshakers. Only a fool would not suspect a traitorous Archon of poisoning the mind of his students with sedition. We would have killed the Earthshakers Guild for their master's treachery, but I'm sure you have some perfectly valid reason for allowing them to live as your pawns.
And that's the voices of Nerat. The Archon of Secrets passes a scepter between his hands as he speaks, twirling the rod in hypnotic circles. Emerald luminescence seeps from the seams of the Archon's ragged red robes. The glow is most noticeable where his neck ought to be. His mask seems to float and spin, never pivoting or bending naturally. And if you scroll over the bit about the twirling rod, you hear the voices in your head. Well, hello there, Fatebinder. We will be with you in just a moment.
Hey, watch yourself. When these two get going, you don't want to get between them.
I'm going to remain silent.
I always know you've run out of things to say when you resort to mocking my vassals. If we are to speak of treachery, why is it that my scouts see the Scarlet Chorus warriors defecting back to the Vendrian Guard? Your fearsome reputation has gone flaccid, for it seems you cannot control your soldiers, or perhaps you simply choose not to.
Iron Marshal Aranos says, "My lords, the Fatebinder has arrived." The disfavored commander raises her voice, trying with little success to speak over the Archons. Perhaps we could table this discussion and let our guests speak?
Speaking of strategic failures, who was it that insisted the valley would need only a token garrison? For some strange reason, we can't seem to recall which balding halfwit grossly underestimated the enemy. Thoughts?
The Archon of Secrets twirls his scepter in a twisting loop, his leather-wrapped hands flipping the heavy rod with an effortless flow. You hear the voices in your head. Can you hear us, Fatebinder? Cough if we have your attention. I'm going to remain silent.
And I thought you had left agents within these Tiersmen when they surrendered. Either you failed to see this coming, or you knew and let it happen. Incompetent or in cahoots, either way, this mess has your filthy stink all over it.
The Archon of War lurches forward, resting his weight on his war maul as blue luminescence crackles around his armor.
We look forward to seeing you explain to Tunon why the Archon of War could not close the vice on this trivial little insurgency. When we are crowned the ruler of the Tiers, we shall have this place renamed to Ash's Folly in your honor.
The voices of Nerat tosses his scepter into the air, catching it as it descends back down. You hear the voices in your head. Hello, Fatebinder. We know you can hear us. Now you know we know you know. Come on, these meetings with Ash are so boring. Cough if we have your attention.
If I could trust the information I get from you and your conscripted mouth breathers, perhaps I'd order my cohorts around a bit more aggressively. But last time I trusted your all-clear report, my troops failed to come home.
Oh, Ash, old boy. If you're going to have a little sob every time one of your nieces or nephews dies to the Tiersmen, perhaps we should have Siren sing you some calming lullabies to help you cope with your grief.
So Siren is the Archon of Song and the youngest Archon sent to conquer the Tiers. Young and inexperienced, Siren is sworn to the voices of Nerat, who uses her powers of charm and manipulation to swell the ranks of the Scarlet Chorus with volunteers. The Archon flips his scepter 3 times around, humming gleefully. You hear the voices in your head. Suit yourself, Fatebinder, the more you ignore us. Iron Marshal Arinos says, Hold your tongue. I will not have you denigrate the honor of our fallen brethren. The commander's hand moved to the hilt of her blade, though the weapon stays sheathed. I'd be doing us all a favor if I cracked open that excuse for a head. Fifth Eye says, They bicker like children, do they not? The Fifth Eye's grating tenor pierces the tension in the tent, and all eyes land on the Crimson Spear. I, meant only to say welcome. Welcome to our guest, the Fatebinder. The armored retainer bows with a rushed-in elegance, then rises to a salute. And not a moment too soon.
Did I give you permission to speak?
The Archon of War turns to you, his blue eyes wide with anger. The many portraits you've seen depict Graven Ash with a stern, unamused countenance. He is even more taciturn in the flesh. I will bow to the Archons and say apologies for the sudden entrance. I've traveled long to be here.
Welcome, Firestarter. We have been eagerly anticipating your arrival. Perchance you bring another of Kairos' edicts to savage the enemy? My soldiers tell me you helped Commander Drotus on your way through Edring. You honor the court with your selfless cooperation, for that is the sort of camaraderie that Kairos demands of us all.
On the last of his words, the Archon of War glares at the voices of Nerat, furrowing his brow as he utters the word camaraderie. I come bearing an edict of Kairos.
For the second time, Brother Tunon selects you for the glory of proclamation. You should be honored. Tell us, what has the Overlord decided to unleash upon the Oathbreakers?
In honor of your incompetence and disarray, the edict will execute every living thing in this valley unless Ascension Hall is taken by Kairos' Day of Swords. So I got favor with the voices of Nerat, but wrath with Graven Ash with the way I phrased that. The earth sways with each word you utter, the air thickening with warmth as you pronounce the tersely phrased commandment, its every syllable drafted by the hands of Kairos. With the edict proclaimed, your pulse quickens, and the muscles in your legs, worn from a long trip down the mountains, feel renewed, the tired limbs now nearly buoyant with vigor.
The Overlord means to compel us into action. No doubt the avalanches in the mountains are part of this ultimatum. We must conquer the Oathbreakers or die in failure. There is no room for error, and no other way out of this valley alive. We'll need to advance across the Mittani. We lose everything if we stand still. And we move to backup Plan Green. The Earthshakers didn't make it over the mountain in time. So we do this the hard way. Over the walls instead of through.
The Archon of War taps a finger against his temple. A low rumble escapes from under his beard.
So you found your backbone at last! Oh, we were worried past humiliations would make you soft, timid. That was a record for you, right? The baker's dozen lost in one sortie. If you had waited for the chorus reinforcements, maybe we'd have eyes and ears on the matter.
The Archon of Secrets passes his scepter from one hand to the next, chuckling softly with each toss. You hear the voices in your head. Watch him squirm. So many tears over replaceable, expendable, useless soldiers. I miss the old Archon of War. You'd never see blood echo in a blubbering mess over a few dead killers. He'd used the knuckle bones of his best disciples for jewelry, and even made a breastplate out of his dead brother's ribcage, because that's how a real man deals with grief. Because my subterfuge is high enough, I will say, they call you the Archon of Secrets, but you certainly don't seem to know anything remotely useful.
I second the fate binder. Thought you had the memories of one of those Oathbreakers rattling about that bronze gourd of yours. Would Kairos' mighty spy master please enlighten this gathering of allies with some scrap of strategic insight?
The Archon of Secrets turns his head to the side until the face of his mask has turned around and a new facet of the mask presents itself as facing forward. When next the Archon speaks, the booming voice of an older man can be heard.
Cowards! If I were still alive, I'd freeze the blood as it runs in your veins. You may take the river, but you'll pay for it with your lives.
The Archon slaps a hand against his mask, rotating his mask until a new facet faces forward. So, the voices of Nerat appears to be channeling the personality of Master Hagravar. Hagravar was one of the elders of the School of Tides, a southern school of water magi that fell to Kairos' forces in 429 during the initial attack on Vendrian's Well. By your order, the Tidecasters taken in battle were presented to the voices of Nerat so that their magic might be integrated into the Archon's ever-growing arsenal of knowledge.
Our sources tell us the Oathbreakers had some sort of magical trick in store. But this knowledge is tinged with fear, trepidation. If we make a move for the Mittani, we suspect the Oathbreakers will mount a counterattack that is equal parts valiant and futile.
I know that voice. Master Hagravar of the School of Tides?
Yes, and that old codger put up quite a fight on the way out. Almost turned himself into a puddle to escape our interrogations. He's not the last of the Tidecasters, though. At the time of his death, there was another. A woman named Ebb. We believe she is one of the mages assisting these Oathbreakers.
Alright. Then enough talking. There's work to be done. Iron Marshal Arano says, My lord, Barrick and his band have been drilled on the Echo Call assault plan. The Crescent Runners should be briefing him as we speak regarding the latest enemy movements across the river. I will dispatch him at once. The Iron Marshal salutes, clapping her gauntlet to her breastplate. Fifth Eye says, And I will ensure the chorus stands ready to march. If the disfavored can take the river, the chorus have the manpower to secure the outer ring of the valley.
Our soldiers clamor for battle, and at last we shall have it. Verse, we command you to continue guarding the Fatebinder.
Tunon's Chosen is our honored guest, and must be shown our finest hospitality.
I won't let you down, boss. She'll get through the campaign in one piece, as long as she doesn't do anything too stupid.
Let's see. The voices of Narat twirls the scepter one last time, and we hear in our head, Suit yourself, Fatebinder, the more you ignore us. And then taps Fifth Eye on the shoulder, and the two depart.
Finally, the fool and his puppet are gone. Perhaps now I can hear myself think. Rarely do I question Kairos' judgment, but I will never understand why the voices of Narat is given such authority. I shudder to think what will become of us all should Tunon favor him in the end. Though the edict threatens the Scarlet Chorus just as it threatens us, I cannot shake the feeling that our allies will work against us. You've shown your worth in war, and your name has been known to the Legion since the very beginning of this long conquest. So I'd ask that you join us this one last time, to help us wrap up this last objective. If you wish to be counted amongst the glorious, speak with the Iron Marshal. She will direct the order of battle until we are ready for the final push into the Citadel.
The Marshal says, I'm short a few scouts, short a few soldiers, short a few everything. I'm sure my brethren would be grateful for the assistance of a skilled outsider. I'd be honored to help. She salutes Graven Ash, and then turns to leave the tent. I will be at the training grounds readying the soldiers. Find me there when you're ready. She pauses, clearing her throat. And though I'm loath to mention it, the chorus can likely use your assistance. They certainly won't secure the outer valley on their own. Fifth Eye will be somewhere in that rat's nest they call a camp, due east. Seek him out, if you must. Okay.
I got it.
So let's go down here and talk to Arrhenius again. Actually, let's level up, because we got a level up there. So we get to put 1 point into something. Guess might as well do wits. And then in addition to that, you also have skill trees. So I'm going to be looking at magic right away. Leadership is also a good one though, but you don't get to start it yet. So let's get a bonus to the lore skill. That'll help us with spells. Let's see, Iron Marshal Arenio says, don't just coddle the impact, push back with your shield, take the momentum. Field commander of the disfavored, she pounds her fists in the air as she calls out to the warriors on the training field. I set eyes on your opponent's waistline. If you spend more than a glance checking his footwork, you've lost. The disfavored officer turns to you, adjusting her pale golden surcoat. Which marks her as being high-ranking. She clears her throat. Need to stay on top of the troops or their skills will rust. It's for their own good, even if they don't believe it. It was mentioned you're short on warriors and need help. What's the situation? She says, I have brigades amassing along Placid, Echo Call, and Little Tooth crossings. The Vendrian Guard may be able to hold one bridge, but they cannot hold against a concerted three-prong attack. I have no right to give you orders, but... Her words falter, a short cough breaking her flow. But we all die to Kairos' edict should we fail, so I'm not about to let my pride blind me to the value of good help. This is the second major attack on the river, correct? What happened last time? She says, defeat in detail. We carved a bloody path up the river, but at that point, everyone who charged ahead was lost. We had no chorus backup. It was just a few disfavored squads. I can't tell you exactly how they were defeated, but we lost the whole assault team. She shakes her head, letting out a long, pained sigh. We found bodies washing up in the river for days. It's not often the Tearsmen put up such a good fight. It certainly made us reevaluate the number we'll need to take the valley. Verse says, really? Are you sure our scouts didn't give you all sorts of details about the enemy and you just choose to disregard our warnings? I'll say we can pass out blame after the war. Only the Oathbreakers matter now. Arenya says, quite right. Getting our emotions into the mix won't hasten this campaign. I will assist. She says, then our plan just might work. The Iron Marshal lifts her gauntlet close to her face, shifting her eyes from you to the metal articulations. We are loath to work with those who do not share our training and our values, but we know that Tunon the Adjudicator selects only the most capable minds for his court, and I trust you will honor us all on the field. Antio will be leading the charge at Echo Call Crossing. Assisting you will be Barrack of the Stone Shields. She points to a heavily armored soldier standing sentry at the edge of the training field. Before you ask, no, the Forgebound weren't sloshed in Dappleseed when they fitted his armor. He survived the full force of the Edict of Storms, and this armor doesn't exactly come off. Tactically, it's quite brilliant, but otherwise, it's something of a curse. Tapping your helmet twice, Arenio signals to the hulking presence. Barrack, come meet the Fatebinder. The soldier who steps up to you better resembles an amalgamation of rusted blades and mismatched pieces of armor fused into a vaguely human shape. He reeks of sweat, feces, and whatever oil treatment keeps him flexible.
Fatebinder, the Iron Marshal has tasked me with keeping you alive, and I have no intention of disappointing her. That should be enough assurance for anyone.
An honor.
Likewise, good Binder.
The soldier heaves a heavy iron grip into salute, his whole body clanging as he wraps his gauntlet against the twisted sheets of metal that form his breastplate.
Barrack, is that you under there? I had no idea you were in Vendrian's well. Fatebinder, do you know this walking anchor?
I don't believe we've been acquainted.
It's challenging enough to experience battle from a courtroom, much less remember the faces of your cohorts. I wouldn't expect you to know me under these accursed blades of rust.
He bangs on his malformed chest armor for emphasis. Aurenia says, the Fatebinder will be joining us for the push across the river. I figured an extra hand might help, and more importantly, if my worries come true, and the chorus tries to impede the mission, we will have an observer from the court on our side.
Better to work with the Honorable Binder than some chorus children.
He nods to you, his armor creaking as he bends his neck. Aurenia says, I asked that Barrack accompany you there to arbitrate the cooperation between his company and the Scarlet Chorus. Barrack, you've been without a cohort since the last Battle of Stalwart. It's time we gave you a task more worthy than hauling wagons and leading training drills. She plants her hands on her hips and speaks in clipped official terms. Ash has assigned you to the Fatebinder's service. You're to assume this task is ongoing until we find a more permanent spot for you, which could very well mean the swiftly approaching end of this war, or when the Fatebinder dismisses you. Is that understood? Barrack regards the Iron Marshal in oppressive silence. That's an order, Barrick. She shakes her head and sighs, returning her focus to you. He can be as stubborn as pulling a spire out of the earth, but he's a good soldier. I hope you don't mind the company. I'm honored to have a member of the Iron Legion at my side. She says, excellent. I look forward to your success in the field.
Will do.
Alright, and let's call it there for today. Because also I cannot talk, so... Alright. Save. We're good. Alright, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.